From a different dimension, an entire new world just appeared. And with this new world also came dangerous dungeons. Inside these places lived terrifying creatures. These monsters were extremely powerful and menacing. They emerged 50 years ago, and even today, they remain a threat to humanity. Just then, someone arrives on the scene and asks if the creature is the boss of this area. The monster slowly awakens, its red eye glowing in the darkness. But with a smirk, he declares the beast's reign ends today. Despite this threat, humanity continues to stand firm and fight. It's because of people like him that they can still bravely resist. He then consumes 100 skills to activate an unmatched power. And this is the story of a single boy who faced this world. With his hand on his sword, he gets ready, wanting to see who is the strongest. Then the young man charges forward with all he's got, yelling that the fight has begun. His goal in this world is simply to reach the very top of everything. Meanwhile, in the city, a news report announces that Dungeon J8 has been conquered. The one responsible was the explorer Subaru Takagami, making it his 7th conquest. A father and his son watch the news, which calls the achievement unprecedented in history. The little boy gets excited seeing his dad on TV and calls him amazing. The proud father replies that he is the pinnacle of Japan's explorers. He then says that if it's Noboru, he can definitely do it because he is his and Rai's son. Then he encourages the boy to become a hero, promising a great adventure would follow. With an excited smile, he promises that the two of them will go on an adventure together. At that, the little boy's eyes shine with hope and admiration for his father. It was a simple childhood promise, but Noboru dreamed of being just like his dad. Back then, he was the leader of his friend group and was always surrounded by others. The high point of it all was when our protagonist awakened his skill at 12 years old. These abilities are powers that appeared with the dungeons and awaken at age 12. They also have levels that increase the more a person trains. No one knows the limit, but since the highest level seen is 7, they speculate it might be 10. On a certain night, a bright blue light shines from a house window. It was the young man's power awakening as he slept, a power that would change his life. He awakened Skill Collection, a unique skill that allows him to easily acquire others. It was an incredible power that let him learn various skills, but it had one huge problem. Now 15 years old, Noboru sits frustrated in front of a cave. After defeating a monster, its body vanishes and a mana stone appears in its place. These stones can be sold to the government as an energy resource. From the monsters he defeats, the profit is very low, but a voice interrupts his thoughts. He looks back with a sour expression, already knowing who is coming. A cocky kid named Kazuno appears, also 15 years old. Kazuno approaches and taunts him, asking if Noboru is picking up trash again. He continues the teasing, saying it must be tough for an elite with a unique skill to do this. Kazuya explains that the skills he picks up never go past level 1 and have little effect. With that, he scoffs, calling Noboru's ability the weakest in history. The smug kid asks how many skills Noboru has, who guesses around 9,000. Kazuno is shocked since elite explorers have about 5 and he has 9,000. But our protagonist just glares as Kazuya laughs at him. His rival then leaves, satisfied, saying Noboru deserved the humiliation. Noboru takes a deep breath and ignores him, needing to find the next enemy. He knows he's weak and can barely fight simple monsters, but he refuses to give up. With a clenched fist, he remembers his promise to aim for the top and become a hero. At that moment, a slime appears and he sees it as the perfect chance. He gets ready to reach the top. You have to work hard and start somewhere. But out of nowhere, more slimes appear, startling him with their numbers. The monsters then all pounce on him, putting him in a tough spot. Even while taking a beating, he yells that he won't lose and that he will find a way to win. Through the fight, he acquires new skills like sword technique and impact resistance. After a narrow victory, he sits down exhausted, realizing he's still far from the top. More notifications pop up. He gains vigor boost and more impact resistance. He laments that even with so much work, he only learns level 1 skills. After all that, he still needs to pick up the mana stone left on the ground. So, he lazily drags himself over to collect the item dropped by the monster. But suddenly, the ground gives way, and he simply disappears into the hole. He's fallen into a trap and is confused, having never heard of one on the first floor. All of a sudden, a scream echoes through the cave, putting him on high alert. Even knowing the danger, he runs to help, unable to just abandon someone. Arriving at the scene, Noboru is completely frozen by what he finds. He sees a giant bear from the 10th floor and a few people already down on the ground. But the most important thing right now was to help anyone still conscious. He approaches a girl asking if she's okay. She says she isn't. She explains that some monsters ambushed her and ended up injuring her leg. The young woman asks for a healing potion, but Noboru admits he doesn't have one, since he only stays on the first floor. Surprised, she says this is no time for that, and that she'll handle the situation herself. The girl tells him to run and regroup, but he refuses to leave her behind. With a serious look, he faces the situation without a single hint of fear. He knows fighting a beast like this is a sure way to get taken out, but he moves forward anyway. Noboru says he'll fight alongside her, and she asks if he's sure he wants to meet his end here. With a smile, he says yes, because he fell from a first-floor trap. So either way, he wouldn't be able to get back alone if he abandoned her. She then agrees, promising that if they make it out alive, she'll escort him to the exit. The girl introduces herself as Shizuka Suzutani, adding that she's 18 years old. With a slightly embarrassed smile, he also says his name Noboru Takagami. Then Shizuka calls his name, and the two of them charge into battle together. Suddenly, our hero remembers something important right before the fight. He gets Shizuka's attention and asks for just a moment before they begin. With his hand glowing green, he uses a healing spell on his new partner. She's shocked by the sight and wonders if that's recovery magic. Shizuka asks how he can use magic, and Noboru explains that the effect is very weak. His unique skill lets him learn rare spells, but they are super weak. Because of the ability's low power, the most he can do is heal a scratch. So the healing is more to put a person at ease than to actually help. But Shizuka disagrees. With a smile, she says that even if it's just a little, she feels better. The sudden compliment makes our protagonist a bit flustered. Still, he's happy to have helped, and she thanks him for his kindness. But the happiness is short-lived as the giant bear roars, interrupting their moment. Shizuka announces their break is over, and the pair gets ready to fight. With a battle cry, they charge forward together at the massive creature. The girl uses her ability, rushing in with a powerful double slash. The blow lands squarely, but the beast retaliates with a devastating paw strike. She can't dodge in time and is thrown far away with full force. Seeing his partner in peril, Noboru screams her name in desperation. He realizes he needs to buy some time, deciding to use another one of his skills. With that, a yellow light shoots from his hand, blinding the monster for an instant. Seizing the opportunity, he charges with everything he has toward the giant beast. With a grim look on his face, he yells, preparing his strike with all his might. But to his surprise, his sword barely pierces the creature's thick hide. The beast strikes back with a powerful swipe that sends him flying without mercy. Even with his body battered and bruised, the young man doesn't seem ready to give up. At that moment, his partner leaps forward, her swords ready for the final attack. With a precise and powerful strike, she manages to hit the bear's weak spot. The duo celebrates their victory as the monster finally falls defeated. But the celebration is cut short as Noburu's hand starts to throb with pain. He insists he's fine, but his pained expression and injuries show otherwise. As luck would have it, the bear gets back up, and now things look really serious. Shizuka says they were already planning to fight for real and calls for him to continue. They attack in unison again, trying to find an opening on the furious monster. But in a moment of carelessness, the beast lands a brutal blow on our protagonist. His partner tries to help, attacking the bear to distract it and save her friend. From the severe wound, he gains 2 new resistances. Almost passing out, Noboru begins to wonder if this is his end. In his mind, he sees Kuzuno laughing and questions if this is really his limit. The monster prepares for the final blow against the fallen boy. Seeing this, Shizuka reaches out her hand, desperately yelling her partner's name. She screams in desperation for him to run and save himself from the imminent attack. With his face all scratched up, he looks like he's about to lose consciousness. He then remembers his father's smile and thinks it's all over for him. But in that moment, his eyes snap open with new and fierce determination. With a shout of no, he stands up as a dark aura completely envelopes him. His father's words echo in his mind, motivating him never to give up the fight. With this, he gains the indomitable skill and more impact resistance at level 1. He also acquires Fist Strike and prepares to fight until the very end. Repeating that he will never give up, he is hit head-on by the monster's claw. Even with his face wounded, the young man remains firm in his decision not to surrender. The impact of the blow is so strong it throws him backward with brutal force. The scene shows him flying through the air, blood trickling from his mouth. Despite his grave injuries, his eyes still burn with the will to fight. He gains fear resistance and another level of indomitable to keep moving forward. A notification announces he has reached 10,000 skills and will receive a new ability. He begins to float, and Shizuka can only wonder what is happening to him. Blue magic circles surround him as he floats, his eyes completely white. At that moment, the system prompts him to make an important selection. In a blue void, he stares at a selection screen, not understanding what it is. The screen then displays 3 supreme power options for him to choose from. With his eyes still blank, Noboru touches the screen to make his choice. He decides to go beyond the top, choosing a power that will take him further than normal. With that, a powerful golden aura explodes from him as he returns to the battlefield. With a confident smile, he announces the awakening of a supreme and unmatched power. He then consumes 10,000 skills to activate his new super-level ability. As his fist glows with an absurd amount of energy, he yells that this is the power he's been seeking. The ability strengthens his body according to the skills consumed, granting a 100,000% increase. Filled with power, he charges and delivers a devastating punch right to the monster's face. The impact is so immense that the entire ground shatters and cracks from the force. After the attack, our hero is left panting, having used up all his energy. With a faint smile, he says, "I did it," and Shizuka runs to him worried. But the power was so great that it opened a hole in the ground, and both of them fall into the darkness. At the bottom of the pit, the girl checks his pulse and is relieved to find he's breathing. However, she remains very worried about the state her partner is in. She looks up at the enormous hole, wondering how it's possible. Not even heroes can do that. With a curious gaze, she turns back to the unconscious young man in her arms. Then, she gently touches his hair and wonders who he really is to have a skill like that. Meanwhile, outside Dungeon J45, a crowd is in a panic. A guard tries to calm everyone, asking them to evacuate the area for safety. The man wonders what on earth happened to make a place like that tremble. His colleague speculates that maybe a powerful monster caused all the commotion. Just then, two men see Shizuka emerging from the dungeon, commenting they've never seen anything like it. She then appears, carrying the unconscious protagonist on her back. With him on her back, she grumbles that she finally thought she'd reached the exit. But as she looks up, she questions what in the world is going on here. Sometime later, in a hospital room, the young man starts to groan in pain. With his eyes still half closed, he slowly awakens from a deep sleep. Suddenly, he sits up startled and asks where he is. Shizuka appears and asks how he's feeling, since the potion should have healed him. She tells him that out of nowhere, he started to glow and used an incredible skill on the beer. Noboru is completely shocked and speechless upon hearing what he did. He looks at his hand, wondering if he really has that power, but feels like he did something. Realizing he doesn't remember anything, he apologizes sheepishly. But she tells him not to be sorry, saying she's the one who should be thanking him for her life. The young man then remembers she blinded the bear, and after that, the creature hurt her. With a smile, his partner cuts him off, saying that's enough. She gently takes his hand and asks him to listen carefully. With his eyes fixed on hers, he waits to hear what she has to say. Shizuka says that his power saved them, but the person who truly saved her was the powerless Noboru. He looks thoughtful at her words, but she isn't finished talking yet. He replies that it makes no sense, that their mission was basically a one-way trip, but she insists he didn't abandon her and fought until the end, and that's why she was saved. She then gets all flustered, adding that saving her with an amazing skill was also cool. Shizuka ignores her own rambling and, with a determined look, moves closer to him. Then, she throws her arms around him in a tight hug, thanking him and calling him her savior. "You're my hero," she says without a doubt, leaving him surprised and blushing. Suddenly, the girl realizes what she's doing and pulls away, completely embarrassed. She quickly says goodbye and runs out of the room, leaving him behind. Alone, Noboru realizes he didn't even get her contact info and feels a bit bummed. He flops back onto the bed, staring at his hand and thinking about everything that just happened. He remembers her words and is so happy that he even forgets about the powerful skill he used. With a smile on his face, he clenches his fist, feeling a great wave of happiness. He then thinks of his father, wondering if he got a little closer to being like him. Shizuka's words continue to echo in his mind as he remembers her hug. Outside the room, his rival had been spying on the whole scene from the hallway. Later that night, our hero is running through a park and realizes it's getting late. He's worried about his mom and decides he needs to get home as fast as possible. A little before he turned 13, his father disappeared, which is why his mother worries so much. He pulls out his phone and sees several missed calls and messages from her on the screen. He panics at so many calls and blames himself for not getting in touch sooner. He's grateful for her concern, but at the same time, wishes it was a little less. Suddenly, a familiar voice shouts his name in the middle of the dark night. Noboru stops running and sees his rival standing in the middle of the path, waiting for him. With a grim expression, the young man turns, recognizing Kazuya from a distance. He then approaches and says he's in a hurry and needs to go. Without any warning, his rival lunges forward and lands a punch right in his face. The surprise attack catches him off guard, throwing him to the ground. Furious, Noboru yells, asking what he thinks he's doing. Kazuno grabs him forcefully by the collar and leans in close. He says it looks like Noboru is having delusions and that he's here to fix that. Completely confused, the young man tries to break free, asking what he's talking about. Enraged, his rival shouts, asking why he's hanging out with Shizuka Suzuyatani. Noboru wonders how Kazuya knows her, and he replies that the Suzuyatani sisters are famous. He is completely shocked to hear the word priestess and understands the connection. The priestesses are a rare all-female clan, and their abilities are among the best in Japan. The clan's leader, Nodoka Suzuyatani, is so popular she even released a photo book. With his head spinning, he tries to process the information about the sisters. Then it clicks: Shizuka is the younger sister of the famous Nodoka. Kazuno then belittles him, asking why a trash picker like him is with someone famous. With a mocking smile, he sneers that Noboru's place is at the bottom, and he shouldn't try to climb out. With that, he yells that he's going to make him remember his place and prepares to attack. Noboru draws his sword, saying it's crazy to use a weapon here, but his rival doesn't care. Kazuya charges forward, saying it doesn't matter what he does as long as he doesn't get caught. And with that, the fight begins, the two exchanging fierce blows in the middle of the park. Our hero thinks about screaming for help but is caught off guard by an attack. His rival strikes him in the neck and he gains impact resistance. Unable to speak, he realizes the enemy's technique has silenced him. The smug kid says he won't be talking for a while and no one will catch him. He then continues the assault, saying Noboru's place is on the ground, taking a beating. But our hero doesn't give in, and even while getting hit, he looks for a way to fight back. In that moment, his super-level ability appears to save the day. He notices that almost all his skills are gone but understands what happened. A normal person would be powerless, but he can simply get them all back. With a glint in his eye, he realizes this is the ultimate synergy of his powers. Consuming his skills, a golden aura explodes from him, leaving his rival completely confused. With a confident smile, Noboru announces that now it's time to counterattack. With his fist glowing, he feels an immense power surging through his entire body. The system shows his consumption-based physical enhancement is at 80%. His rival scoffs, calling it just a flashy skill, and charges forward with everything he's got. But to the rival's astonishment, our hero stops the attack with a single hand. The arrogant kid is stunned, and our protagonist warns him that trick won't work again. Then, with a glowing fist, he declares it's his turn to attack. The rival's eye trembles with fear as he senses the overwhelming power difference between them. A single punch sends his enemy straight to the ground, knocking him out cold. The young man himself wonders how he managed to take the guy down with just one hit. He then grasps the true strength he now possesses, and is thrilled with the fight's outcome. With this top-tier ability, he finally has a fighting chance. He bids farewell to his rival, stating he's no longer afraid and is determined to surpass him. The following day, our protagonist is making his way through a bustling crowd. Suddenly, he hears a familiar voice and spots Shizuka waving at him from a distance. She's surprised to see him, but the young man explains he has a quota to meet. As it turns out, regular attacks without skills are barely effective on dungeon monsters. And if the dungeons aren't cleared, these creatures could eventually escape into the world. For that reason, anyone who awakens a combat skill is required to fight from the age of 15. He recalls the quota is 100 mana stones, and since he's not very strong, it'll take him some time. So, Shizuka offers to help him meet the quota much more quickly. Inside the dungeon, Shizuka brings up that he's the son of the famous Subaru Takagami. The boy feels a bit downcast, but his partner cheers him up with a playful flick on the forehead. She says that compared to his father, even her own sister would seem average. He then remembers she's the priestess's sister and is shocked by the revelation. But the girl admits she was the one who was surprised when she learned who he was. The protagonist says her name, still trying to process the information. She then reveals that she's also working hard to be more like her older sister. At that, she proposes a race to see who can reach their goal first. Despite the disadvantage, he accepts the challenge, vowing that he won't lose. This shared objective of theirs was something simple, yet incredibly important. With this new purpose, the young man feels closer to the girl and gets incredibly motivated. Shizuka then asks him to stand back because there's something she wants to try. Our protagonist announces he's going to consume a skill to test his power. He attempts to activate his ability, but nothing happens, leaving his partner confused. The boy then realizes he can't use the power without a skill to consume first. He decides to use the skill on a random monster, and his friend points out a nearby slime. The kid says he'll be right back and rushes toward the creature as she wishes him luck. After defeating the creature, he acquires the sword technique skill repeatedly. With that, multiple notifications appear as he continues to gain the same skill. Once the fight is over, he's completely exhausted, realizing how tough it is to fight without his main skill. Shizuka congratulates him on a job well done but seems to have a comment, and he asks what's on her mind. She teases him for having such a hard time against a simple slime, and he sheepishly agrees. But the young man declares this weakness won't last forever and activates his new ability. A golden aura erupts from him, and his partner is amazed by the brilliant light. The boy, however, notices the power feels significantly weaker than it did the day before. The system screen then indicates the enhancement rate is only at 20%. He's startled as it was 80% yesterday and wonders if the power changes based on the skills. He then scolds himself for being an idiot since the skills description already explained it all. After composing himself, the protagonist decides to investigate this ability more deeply. First, he needs to figure out the connection between consumed skills and the power boost. He learns the power lasts for 1 minute with no cooldown, but the effect is overwritten if used again. He also discovers he can choose the number of skills, so it's best to reactivate it right before it ends. This is great news as he can save skills for emergencies and adjust his strength accordingly. With his bag full of mana stones, the young man announces he has finally completed his quota. He thanks his partner for her help, and she says it was no big deal and they can head back. The girl mentions his help was crucial, but he replies that she was the one who took down the creature. He explains the challenge was having skills to use, and he only won because of her. The young man grows pensive at the word, strongest, and stares off into the distance, reflecting. Since childhood, his dream has been to become a hero. Title for those who make a great contribution to the world. He wonders if reaching that level will finally allow him to catch up to his father. Until now, it was just a fantasy, but his new skill has suddenly changed everything. He then reveals to Shizuka that his dream is to become a hero one day. She looks a little puzzled and asks if he means a hero-class explorer. The girl notes it's a tough dream, explaining that earning the title requires a major incident. Seeing him go quiet, she gets annoyed and pinches his cheek, thinking he expected her to laugh. The protagonist clarifies that's not it, and that aside from his parents, no one ever took his dream seriously. With a confident smile, Shizuka says she'll boast about being the first to recognize his potential. She then encourages him to give it his all, calling him future hero. Deeper in the dungeon, they come across a giant, dangerous insect-like monster. The boy readies himself and charges into the fray, declaring he's prepared this time. He skillfully dodges an attack and lands a perfect kick on the creature, but the beast strikes back with a heavy blow, slamming him into the ground. The protagonist struggles to his feet, refusing to give up the fight against this enemy. With a smirk, he says things are different now and activates his ability. The attack hits him squarely, but he manages to endure the impact and learn new skills. Through this, he gains increased durability along with pain and impact resistance. He realizes that the stronger the foe, the more his own skills evolve. The young man also learns bleed resistance and the indomitable will ability. With his eyes glowing, he consumes 10 skills to unleash his maximum power. The system then confirms his power enhancement is at 100%. The monster's reflection gleams in his eyes as he prepares for the finishing move. With his blade shining blue, he delivers a flurry of swift, precise cuts. With his gaze locked on the enemy, he focuses all of his strength into one last attack. With one final decisive strike, he cuts the creature down, ending the fight for good. The young man celebrates, thrilled that he finally managed to defeat a bear all by himself. Grinning from ear to ear, he declares himself a real explorer. But he immediately admits his efficiency is still pretty terrible. The skill acquisition rate rises with the opponent's strength, but this is a double-edged sword. The more powerful he becomes with his skill, the harder it is to learn new abilities. He wonders if he can manage with just 2 skills or if he should risk using 3 for a longer duration. Shizuka approaches and congratulates him for taking down the giant bear on his own. She then pouts, saying he caught up to her too fast when she wanted to be the older sister. The boy plays along with the joke, but the girl gives him an indifferent stare. With a smile, she says she'll forgive him if he buys her a convenience store pudding. All of a sudden, the ground crumbles beneath them, and the two plummet into the darkness. The protagonist yells her name, holding her tight to shield her from the fall. The pair falls uncontrollably, with no idea where they're going to land. Once on the ground, the girl complains that even while trying to save him, she ended up falling too. The boy insists he saved her and wonders what just happened and where they are. Shizuka then realizes the exact same thing happened when they first met. A scream echoes through the cavern, and the pair decides to investigate what's going on. Shizuka calls out to the boy, and with a determined expression, he confirms he's ready. They find a group battling monsters, and he chooses to help by tossing a potion. The kid throws the potion, remarking that it's a good thing he bought a few before heading in. One of the girls uses her magic to heal a wounded teammate on the ground. The healed young man groans in pain but thanks our hero for the assistance. The protagonist tells them to save the chatter for later and jumps into the fight. Shizuka tells him to conserve his energy, assuring him that she and the other two can handle this. But the pink-haired girl shouts that more monsters are swarming in from every direction. A horde of red-shelled creatures appears, charging to attack the party. She then conjures a wall of fire, trying to hold back the creatures and protect her friends. The group cries for help as they can barely handle the monsters already there. Shizuka just smiles and tells him not to worry, confident that he can handle this. With a self-assured grin, the boy agrees and says he's going all in against the monsters. He activates his ability, consuming 10 skills and braces for the battle. The creatures charge as a swarm, but the protagonist doesn't show a hint of fear. With a swift cut, he defeats one of the monsters with stunning ease. He then unleashes a spinning slash, striking all the enemies in his immediate vicinity. After the attack, he turns to the pink-haired girl and asks if she's alright. Blushing, she replies that she is, still in awe of his strength. With a resolute look, he tells the group to fall back, saying he'll take care of this alone. With a single spinning strike, he creates a whirlwind that sucks in and obliterates all the monsters. The group stares, jaws dropped, and the girl remarks that he's incredibly strong and maybe a little cool. Her friend teases her, asking if she's over her thing for older guys. In the midst of the horde, the young man fights on, relentlessly taking down creatures. But he suddenly realizes his ability's timer has run out right in the heat of battle. Powerless, he starts taking hits from the monsters, gaining new resistance skills in the process. The group complains that he's not so cool after all and tells him to get it together. Suddenly, Shizuka jumps in, saving him from an attack and asking if he's okay. The duo then teams up, realizing they just need to eliminate the leader. With a combined assault, they defeat the boss and put an end to the threat. After the battle, the floor is littered with mana stones, and the two breathe a sigh of relief. The group comes over to thank them, and Shizuka asks where exactly they are. The blonde young man replies that they're on the 12th floor, and she's shocked they fell that far. He explains he's never seen monsters like these before, and that they appeared from nowhere. The guy also admits that if it wasn't for their help, his party would have been wiped out. The monster spawn was abnormal, and with injured members, they couldn't possibly continue. They then invite the duo to return to the surface with them to show their gratitude. The protagonist agrees as he also wanted to head back and was running low on skills. With that, the party is formed, and the blonde extends a hand to seal their new alliance. The entire group then heads for the surface together, as a mysterious figure watches from a distance. Back at the association, the group reports the incident to one of the staff members. She summarizes that they were ambushed by new monsters, and the duo fell through a hole in the floor. The staff member thanks them and says she will log the special cases into the database. She then asks them to wait while the mana stones they brought are appraised. The protagonist offers to split the stones, but the blonde explorer refuses the offer. He claps the boy on the back, saying it's a small price to pay for saving their lives. With a smile, he adds that selfish people end up alone, and that he should remember that. The appraisal finishes, and the staff member calls the protagonist to speak with the manager. Shizuka offers to come along, but he declines, saying he'll go alone and see what it's about. He then heads to the manager's office, and the girl watches him go with a slightly sad expression. The rest of the group also seems a bit let down by his departure. The young man follows the employee down the corridor toward the manager's office. She knocks on the door, announces that she's brought Mr. Takagami as requested. A voice from inside tells them to enter, and the door to the manager's office opens. The man behind the desk greets him, remarking that it's been a very long time. He apologizes and introduces himself as Tadashi Shimi, the manager of Dungeon J45. The protagonist is taken aback to learn the manager knew his father and steps closer. Tadashi then offers his condolences about what happened to his father, and the boy's face turns grim. His father was the strongest in Japan and the first to ever enter an A-ranked dungeon. The manager says he heard rumors about his unique skill and commends him for handling the monsters. He explains that similar incidents have been occurring in various dungeons. Nearly every group that encounters these monsters is eliminated, and the few survivors are left deeply traumatized. But with the boy's appearance and the recovered mana stones, they can use a top-secret detector. Tadashi congratulates him, suggesting he should be the one to resolve the incident himself. With a smile, he proposes that if the young man solves this, it will be a monumental achievement for him. It won't make him a hero overnight, but it will bring him one step closer to his dream. With an intense gaze, he asks if the boy is willing to try for the sake of that dream. Meanwhile, just outside, Shizuka is waiting for him, leaning against the wall. The protagonist then exits the office, and the girl watches as he walks toward her. She welcomes him back and asks what the manager wanted to discuss. The young man begins to recount everything Tadashi told him in the office. After hearing the full story, she asks what he's decided to do about the offer. The boy says he's leaning towards accepting the job, and she asks for his reason. The girl questions if it's because of his dream to be a hero, and he seems surprised. She reminds him he mentioned it before, and he acknowledges that it's true. With a serious expression, the protagonist says it's more than that and shows her a small pouch. He wonders if it was dropped during an escape or if it was a memento from someone who didn't make it. With a sorrowful look, he says the least he can do is return it to their families. Clenching his fists, he says he always thought if he worked hard enough, people wouldn't have to suffer like this. Shizuka stays quiet for a moment, simply observing his resolve. Suddenly, she shoves him against the wall, and he wonders what's gotten into her. With a grin, she says it's nothing, she was just happy to see him being himself. The girl then affectionately ruffles his hair, and the boy gets a little embarrassed. With a radiant smile, she offers to help him on the mission, and he accepts. She says she would have been furious if he hadn't asked, and he thanks her for the support. The two then share a fist bump, deciding to tackle the case together as a team. 3 days later, the girl meets the protagonist at a park to begin their mission. She says there's something concerning about the request. Her sister knew nothing about it. Since her sister is extremely famous and well-connected, it's odd she wouldn't have heard of the incident. The boy suggests it could just be a new monster type, but she feels something bigger is happening. Shizuka says they can't back out of the mission now, but they must be extremely cautious. When they arrive at the dungeon, the boy notes that it looks perfectly normal from the outside. A guard stops them, stating that entry is restricted, but the girl presents their permit. The protagonist introduces himself as the explorer dispatched to investigate the area. The guard confirms their identities and grants the duo passage into the dungeon. They step through the portal and find themselves in a ruin-type dungeon. Shizuka warns him to watch his step, but he assures her he'll be fine. Abruptly, 2 spider monsters appear, and the boy remarks that the party has already started. His partner rushes to the front line while the protagonist provides support with his skills. Shizuka scolds him for being so smug, and the boy just lets out an awkward laugh. The protagonist notes that a single monster is easy, but a group of them could be dangerous. The girl then suggests they conserve his main skill and focus on gaining experience instead. The eyes of a massive spider gleam in the shadows, and the boy braces for a fight. With a determined look, he charges forward, telling his partner to leave this one to him. The duo presses on with their exploration, facing numerous monsters and traps along the way. After some time, his friend asks if they haven't reached their destination yet. With a map in hand, the young man says they still have a bit more to go. Shizuka then moves closer to look at the map and get her bearings. Suddenly, the girl winces in pain, looking like she's about to be sick. The boy catches her, concerned, and asks what's suddenly wrong with her. The moment he touches her, he acquires the poison resistance skill, leaving him utterly confused. He wonders why he would gain that ability now, and if they've walked into a trap. His expression turns angry as he realizes his partner might have been poisoned. It dawns on him that he wasn't the one in danger, it was her. His partner collapses, and he starts to lose consciousness too, his body feeling heavy and weak. Before blacking out, he reaches a hand out, trying to get to his fallen friend. A shadowy figure approaches, remarking that the plan to awaken the boy was a success. The mysterious man says he was being cautious, but it all turned out to be quite simple. He snaps his fingers, and a red aura envelops the monsters in the area. With his eyes glowing crimson, he orders the monsters to take the pair to a specific room. The creatures then carry the 2 unconscious teens to an undisclosed location. The mysterious man mutters that the boy's father caused him a great deal of trouble. With a sinister grin, he says the young man will make an excellent replacement for his father. Meanwhile, in a dark corridor, the protagonist slowly begins to stir. He awakens in a strange place, confused and wondering where he is. His eyes widen as he scans his surroundings, trying to make sense of the situation. The boy realizes he's bound to a chair and begins to panic. A mysterious voice remarks that he's finally awake, and the boy demands to know who's there. The man says he has no intention of letting him go after all the trouble he went through to capture him. Furious, the protagonist realizes the poison wasn't a dungeon trap at all. The villain confirms that it was he who used the poison to incapacitate him. The boy asks what he wants, and the mysterious figure slowly steps out of the shadows. He says he plans to make him suffer as much as possible, leaving the young man bewildered. The villain claims he normally wouldn't reveal his plans, but for him, he'll make an exception. The boy asks what he means by that, and the man begins to explain his motives. He asks if the protagonist is aware of the dimensional rifts appearing across the world. With that, he reveals he has learned to harness the power of monsters for his own ambitions. The boy is horrified to learn that the monsters are under the villain's command. Enraged, he demands to know why the man is sending these creatures to attack explorers. The man explains his goal is to create super monsters by using humans as a food source. He asks if the boy grasps the implications and gestures to a grotesque creature nearby. The villain explains that the monster's evolution was made possible by preying on humans. Typically, the creatures cannot reproduce, but they found a way around that limitation. By using a specimen with that unique capability, they achieved infinite production. The mysterious man celebrates that they can now create enhanced monsters at will. With a malevolent smile, he declares that with this power, world domination is within reach. The villain then adds they're not quite at that stage yet and turns his attention to the protagonist. He states that is precisely why he needs the boy and his unique skill. The mysterious man says he's done talking and orders the monster to take him away, but the protagonist cuts him off, saying he's heard more than enough. He then tries to activate his ability, but to his confusion, nothing happens. The boy tries again, but the skill still won't trigger, and he can't understand why. With a sneer, the villain explains that the chains are designed to cancel out any skills. He taunts that the young man is completely powerless as long as he's bound. With a snap of his fingers, he orders the creature forward, and the protagonist begins to despair. The mysterious man then closes in, ready for the next phase of his plan. He tells the boy there's no escape, and that he is now his personal experiment. The villain places a hand on the protagonist's head, and a purple aura envelops him. He declares he will extract the young man's skill and use it for his own ends. The boy is hurled to the floor, and the monster starts dragging him to an unknown area. The creature pulls him away as he screams desperately to be released. The villain then shatters the empty chair with a single, contemptuous kick. The young man wakes up disoriented, wondering where he is and what has happened. He then finds himself face to face with a terrifying, colossal monster. The mysterious man calls her their queen and asks if she isn't a magnificent sight. The protagonist tries to activate his skill again, but the effort is entirely futile. With a wicked grin, the villain says he's going to make him suffer a little while longer. He then orders the girl to be brought forward, and the protagonist panics at the command. The mysterious man tells him to be quiet, promising he'll soon see what's about to happen. One of the creatures brings in Shizuka, unconscious and bound in the same chains. The boy shouts her name, trying to wake her, but she remains unresponsive. Shizuka slowly comes to, confused, and asks for a friend who is just a few feet away. She tries to move but finds her body is completely immobilized. The girl panics at the sight of the giant creature before her and lets out a terrified scream. The boy yells for the villain to release her, insisting that he's the one the man really wants. The mysterious man replies that she will serve as a nice appetizer before the main course. He then orders the queen to start with her left leg, and the creature lurches forward. The protagonist screams, trying to activate his ability, but he is completely helpless. The villain then grinds his foot onto the chains binding the boy's feet and glares down at him. The villain says he's going to teach the boy a valuable lesson as he closes in. He sneers that heroes awakening their powers is just for stories, and that reality is far crueler. With a sadistic gaze, he says learning that truth is what it means to become an adult. The mysterious man then rips the chains from the protagonist's arm with his bare hands. With a horrifying smile, he welcomes him to his side of the story. The villain tells him to savor the last day of his life and throws him to the ground. Staring at his bleeding hand, the boy realizes this is the harsh reality of the adult world. With tears streaming down his face, he screams his partner's name in utter despair. But the sheer force of his cry manages to activate his skill, striking the villain with immense power. The mysterious man is stunned that he was able to use an ability. He then remarks that it seems the boy used everything he had left and kicks him viciously. The skill begins to spiral out of control, and he feels like his body is about to tear itself apart. Lying on the floor, he hears the villain's taunts and sees his own bloody hand before him. The boy tries to crawl toward his partner, begging her to hold on. With immense difficulty, he promises he will find a way to save her. The mysterious man says he'll let him stew in that despair for a little longer. He then commands the queen to consume the girl's arm, and she cries out in agony. The protagonist panics, screaming uncontrollably at the horrific scene. Through his tears, he shouts that he has to save her, no matter the cost. The image then shows his partner being overcome by the giant creature. Through his tears, the boy screams that he will absolutely save her. Nearly drained of strength, Shizuka tells him not to push himself and to worry about himself. The protagonist cries out in desperation, asking why she's still thinking about him. With a weak smile, the girl says she's not quite sure why either. She recalls the time he saved her, admitting she never thought he'd be the one to do it. His partner confesses she just wanted to act cool in front of him and smiles at the memory. Her body battered, she begins to lose consciousness and slumps to the ground. Her head spins and she can no longer think clearly, but she feels neither pain nor fear. With her final thought, she whispers his name before fading completely. The villain declares that's enough theatrics and that their little farce is over. He then commands the queen to devour the girl's heart without a shred of pity. The boy screams her name, desperately reaching out a hand toward her. With her very last breath, she asks him to always stay true to himself. The villain laughs at the tragic scene, just as a blur pierces straight through his head. A blood-soaked hand emerges, and the protagonist is frozen by the gruesome sight. The mysterious man's body collapses, and the boy lets out a horrified scream. The frame shows his partner lying lifeless on the ground, with our hero in total shock. The system announces that he has consumed 1,000 skills and will now learn a new ability. But the protagonist says it doesn't matter what skill he gets now, nothing can change what happened. He's then transported to a void left to float in the empty darkness. A mysterious voice tells him that isn't true, and that he still has a chance to save her. With a look of newfound determination, the boy turns to face the unknown entity. The voice explains that even after the heart stops, life does not vanish instantly. He remembers his father mentioning an acquaintance who could bring people back. The young man then recalls an old conversation with his dad about life and death. A flicker of hope ignites within him. He realizes people don't pass on so easily. He then wonders if a healing skill of that magnitude could possibly exist. The system screen materializes, offering him a power that transcends the supernatural. With tears welling in his eyes, he begs for the power to save his partner. In a brilliant flash, he returns to the scene of the tragedy and resolves to use his new ability. He consumes the 1,000 skills he's about to learn and activates the Sanshi Sume technique. The ultimate level skill restores a target's condition based on the skills consumed. With a cry of anguish, he declares he will sacrifice his own future to save her. As tears stream down his face, he pleads for his partner to live again. A strange light envelopes the girl's body, and the villain wonders what he's witnessing. The boy feels the warmth of the light on his face and continues to cry, this time with hope. Suddenly, Shizuka murmurs something, and he calls her name, his voice thick with emotion. The girl awakens disoriented, and the protagonist shouts her name in overwhelming relief. He pulls her into a tight embrace, thankful that she's alive and well once more. Still in shock, she wonders how this is possible and thanks him for saving her. The girl gently pats his head, reassuring him that everything is okay now. He then takes off his own jacket and drapes it over her to keep her from getting cold. The villain is flabbergasted, demanding to know what that power was and how he did it. The protagonist states that this was the result of everything he has built up to this moment. Surrounded by a golden aura, he says a quitter like the villain could never understand. He declares that this is the summit only those who never stop climbing can ever hope to reach. The boy consumes 100 skills, reactivating his ability at its absolute peak. With his eyes blazing gold, he prepares for his final assault. He lunges forward with a devastating punch, striking the giant monster with incredible force. The villain screams that it's impossible as the queen is obliterated by the single blow. In utter disbelief, he watches the creature explode into nothingness before his eyes. The protagonist then turns to the mysterious man and asks if he's ready. With a look of pure, unadulterated rage, he says it's time for them to settle the score. The villain is left in total shock and asks what on earth he is to have so much power. Furious, he says everything is ruined and orders the monsters to attack the guy. His partner says she still can't move, but the protagonist calmly reassures her. A creature wearing a crown steps forward, but the guy isn't intimidated by the attack. With a single strike, he destroys the monster and gets ready for the next enemy. The villain's face shows pure astonishment while the guy stares at him with clear disdain. Then he says he's going to step out for a moment and turns toward the girl. With a smile, she asks him to take down all the monsters for her too. With a series of powerful punches and kicks, he easily defeats every single enemy. The mysterious man can't believe his eyes and says this feels like a nightmare. After everything, the guy drops to his knees exhausted and wonders if this is the end. Staring straight at the villain, he says now it's time to settle things with him. The hooded man panics and begs the boy not to come any closer. With his hands together, he apologizes and pleads not to be finished off there. The protagonist looks at him with contempt and asks why he's apologizing now. With his glowing fist, he says he will never forgive him for what he did to him and Shizuka. The villain screams for help, but the guy moves forward and lands a crushing punch. But his partner stops him and says he can't do that right now. She holds him tightly and begs him to stop before he does something he'll regret. The image then shows the protagonist holding the villain while his partner calms him down. Nobira then asks Shizuka why she's protecting that guy, but the girl denies it and says she has no intention of protecting that man. After all, he almost let her get devoured by monsters and she would never forgive him. Still confused, the protagonist asks why she's stopping him. She reveals she did it because she thought Noboru would be the only one who'd end up hurt. His partner explains that if he killed the villain full of hatred, he would change forever. Holding his hand, she says she understands his feelings, and that's why she'll do something. If he can't forgive the man, she offers to carry that burden together with him. Hearing this, the guy is deeply moved and looks at her with a much calmer expression. She then steps back and says she won't interfere anymore, leaving the villain terrified. At that moment, the protagonist closes his eyes, seeming to make a very difficult decision. With his fist clenched and glowing, he prepares to finally take action. Noboru then raises his arm with all his strength, ready to deliver the final blow. But instead of hitting the man, he punches the ground right next to him, causing a huge explosion. He knocks the villain out and says he didn't want to stain Shizuka's hands with his blood. Looking back, the boy thinks to himself that this was the best decision. His partner then thanks him, gently placing her hand on his chest. Right after, she hugs him, and Noboru feels that warmth is more precious than his anger. Warmth of her embrace was hundreds of times more valuable than the hatred in his heart. Scene cuts to a table and a mysterious voice says they understand what happened. Branch manager praises Noburu's work and says his eyes didn't deceive him. Protagonist thanks him shyly, and his partner takes the chance to ask a question. Boss explains that the guy's older sister didn't know about the case because they were one step ahead. The girl questions why they hid the information, and he says they already know. Furious, Noboru realizes they knew about the human involved, and Shizuka gets upset about the mission. The man explains that if they had sent someone famous like his sister, the enemy would have hidden. His partner seems to understand the logic behind that risky decision. After all, if the enemy escaped, more victims would appear, and the girl agrees. He then reveals the other reason is that Noboru already had a history of pushing them back. And since the guy was underestimated, the enemy never expected him to have so much power. With a smile, he says his judgment was correct and apologizes to Noboru. The boy gets embarrassed and asks him to stop, because he only wanted to reduce the number of victims. His boss then says that thanks to him, there won't be any more victims from that villain. Next, he puts a hand on Noburu's shoulder and sincerely thanks him for the job done. The manager then announces the mission was a success and they'll get an extra reward. With that, he says goodbye and tells the two to head home and rest. After the pair leaves, the manager closes his eyes with a very mysterious smile. In a dark place, he says he needs to finish his work and apologizes for the delay. He's standing in front of the captured villain, who refuses to talk and demands a lawyer. But the manager smiles and says there's no need for that, creating a bomb rat in his hand. The hooded man panics when he sees the explosive creature in the manager's hand. With a snap of his fingers, the boss orders the little rat to self-destruct. A massive explosion occurs and the guards outside immediately go on alert. They rush to help, and the manager pretends the villain had a hidden monster. He then says he got injured in the explosion and needs treatment to leave. While walking away, he thinks the villain needs to be more skilled next time. At that moment, his thoughts turn to Noboru with a serious expression on his face. The manager then lights a cigarette while thinking about someone named Subaru. In another place, a powerful man angrily complains about losing a queen. A subordinate apologizes and says he never imagined the hunter would defeat the queen. The boss gets upset and asks if the queen he personally trained was really that useless. The underling tries to correct himself but says the fact is she was defeated in the end. After calming down, he accepts the situation and asks which hunter defeated her. The man reports that, according to the information, 2 hunters were involved. The leader is surprised and asks how just 2 people managed to defeat her. Subordinate confirms and says they were very careful in choosing the bait. He reveals that one of them was Shizuka, and the boss questions why they chose her, but the underling says she was just tagging along. The real bait was a useless kid. The leader agrees it's good bait but wonders if the kid awakens some kind of power. His subordinate suggests listening to what Lady Maya has to say about the incident. The scene changes and we see Noboru training intensely with a sword in a dark place. A system notification appears saying he has learned the sword art skill, but right after, the skill acquisition is cancelled because of an active effect. The protagonist crouches down, disappointed because he already expected that. His healing skill prevents him from learning new skills and cancels them instantly. Luckily, the skills he already had didn't disappear, but he still has a problem. Without his absorption ability, it would take him forever to learn 1,000 skills. In a moment of frustration, he complains that there aren't any monsters that give a ton of experience. Resigned, he decides to stop running from reality when he hears Shizuka calling him. She runs toward him happily because she found him, and the guy is confused. His partner teases that she thought it would be better to talk in person and asks if he didn't want to see her. After the joke, she says her older sister was investigating the incident. The boy gets excited and asks if there's any progress, and she confirms her sister wants to see him. With his mouth full of sandwich, Noboru asks where they're supposed to meet. Shizuka invites him to the Shrine Maiden clan house, and he's shocked by the invitation. She calms him down, saying they'll go to a common area, and the guy finally agrees. Excited, the girl pulls him along to go right away, leaving Noboru surprised by her hurry. And so the two arrive at a modern building with a traditional style entrance. Inside, Shizuka shows him around and says very few people live there at the moment. A woman appears and warns that the women's castle isn't as sweet as he thinks. Shizuka hugs her older sister, who teases her about bringing her boyfriend. The younger sister gets super embarrassed and denies that the guy is her boyfriend. Nodoka introduces herself as the clan leader, making the protagonist extremely nervous. She then says they have a lot to talk about and takes him to a more private place. Seeing the scene, Shizuka makes a grumpy face while watching the two. She complains that Nobiru acts differently around her sister, but he quickly denies everything. The boy confesses that he even bought her photo book, leaving his partner shocked. Hearing this, the clan leader is happy and offers to give him an autograph later. Nobiru gets super excited and thanks her a lot while Shizuka looks annoyed. Nodoka then leads them to a room and warns that someone is waiting for him inside. The protagonist is confused and wonders who could be waiting for him. Saying, "Excuse me," he carefully opens the door so as not to disturb anyone. But when he enters, he's shocked to see a blonde man surrounded by several girls. The mysterious man asks one of the girls to smile so they can take a picture together. Nobiru instantly recognizes him as the famous American hero he saw on TV. That was the great American hero everyone knows and admires so much. However, the hero is flirting with one of the girls, which shocks everyone there. Nodoka looks furious while the hero relaxes on the sofa and the others are tied up. The blonde tries to explain, saying it was just fan service. Furious, Nodoka grabs him and says there's a time and place for everything, and he yells. Nobiru is stunned and wonders why the new hero Lucius is in that place. A narration explains that hero is a title given to high-class explorers. Shizuka then asks her sister what's going on, and she says it's a surprise. Nodoka introduces Lucius as an S-class explorer from America. The protagonist and his partner introduce themselves while still tied up and completely confused. Before explaining everything, the clan leader bows and thanks Nobiru for saving her sister. She says she'll never forget what he did, and Lucius jokes that he thought it was a date. His partner is shocked and asks if her sister is dating the hero. Nodoka denies it and says they're just work colleagues and nothing more. She even adds that she doesn't get involved with someone who has so many admirers. While the two talk, the American hero calls Nobiru over for a man-to-man conversation. Lucius then asks if he's Subaru's son and reveals he already met his father. The American hero continues, saying it happened 10 years ago inside a dungeon. He tells how Subaru saved him, which is why he admires him and started studying Japanese. As a result, he never imagined he would become the second S-class hero in America. The boy gets excited and says he knows about his feats, like putting out a forest fire. The blonde gets embarrassed and says he was desperate and glad no one was hurt. Sipping his tea, he seems happy to be respected by such an amazing person. With a smile on his face, the protagonist thinks his father really is incredible. Finally, the hero says that since he's the son of the man who saved him, he'll give him some advice. The hero then advises Nobiru to stay away from the disappearance case he got involved in. The protagonist is confused and says he was just caught up in the middle of everything. Lucius then asks if he doesn't want to solve the case and become a certified hero. Shizuka gets upset and says she didn't know anything and questions her sister about it. Nodoka and the hero look awkward and admit there was a communication failure. The clan leader starts explaining that similar incidents have been happening in the US and England. He reveals the information is secret to avoid causing panic and that the case will move forward. The hero says that if Nobiru gets involved, he'll be one step closer to becoming a real hero. The guy then remembers a conversation with Nimi about him becoming a hero. But the protagonist looks straight ahead with a serious expression and says he can't. The blonde says that even though he won, he still considers him weak and that it was just luck. Besides, he warns that the enemy will be more prepared and could easily defeat him. He recommends that the boy rest and stay quiet because the enemy might come after him. With his head down, the protagonist seems to understand the situation and feels disappointed. He thinks about how weak he is and how he can't even use his ability properly. But Shizuka defends him and says the hero has terrible judgment when it comes to people. Nobiru is surprised to hear his partner standing up for him like that. With a mischievous smile, the girl stares at the hero, who asks what she means. She calls him arrogant for deciding everything on his own without even checking the facts. With the situation turned around, the guy makes a funny shocked face. His partner then suggests a training battle against the hero Lucius. She simply didn't like seeing the boy being looked down on like that. Holding his hand, she says he has already saved her countless times before. So it's not right for the guy to look so sad because of what the hero said. To her, the protagonist is the greatest hero of all, and she asks him to never forget that. Nobiru is touched by the girl's words and looks at her with admiration. The warmth of her hand lights a fire inside him, filling him with determination. With a confident look, he says his true goal is to reach the very top. Then he turns and faces the American hero with a whole new attitude. Putting the case aside, he wants to know if he can fight against the hero. With that, he challenges him to a fight to test his current limits. The blonde is surprised to see the change in the boy's face and his confident gaze. Lucius then accepts the challenge and says he'll show him just how high the top really is. The image then shows the hero standing on top of an imposing ice mountain. He draws a real sword and says he doesn't like using wooden training weapons, but he assures Nobiru that his sword will never actually hurt him during the fight. That's because the boy's sword will never truly be able to reach him. The protagonist gets tense hearing the American hero's confident statement. With his fist clenched, he feels the enormous pressure coming from his opponent. He thinks the hero isn't mocking him. The power difference is real, but the protagonist prepares himself and charges forward with his sword for the attack. He remembers his past and decides he won't accept defeat so easily. With that, the boy advances at an impressive speed and with great strength. The hero praises his fighting spirit but dodges the strike without difficulty. He then says the boy lacks power, speed, and combat technique. With a quick strike, the hero knocks him down and says he's way too inexperienced. but the boy shouts that he knows that, which is why he'll use all his skill points. He then activates his strongest ability and says he won't hold back. With a golden aura, the protagonist charges forward with overwhelming power. The American hero seems surprised by the strength of the attack and stares at him. Holding his sword, he's shocked and doesn't think about the consequences of the blow. He knows that if he doesn't give everything now, he'll never reach the top. Lucius can't believe it and thinks the boy seems like a completely different person. With that, the hero finally understands that this is his true power. Even with the intense exchange of blows, the American hero still looks calm. He then uses one of his abilities and freezes the entire ground around them. The protagonist is caught off guard and finds his legs trapped in ice. Even with all his effort, the boy still hasn't been able to reach his opponent. The hero admits the boy forced him to use his skill, but it's still not over. He then realizes that as long as he doesn't give up, he'll keep getting stronger. With shining eyes, the boy says his challenge isn't finished yet. The American hero then advances to end the fight once and for all, but the ice around his legs starts to crack and he prepares to react. With a determined look, he thinks his path to the top still continues. Suddenly, Shizuka appears and hits him on the head, calling him an idiot. She scolds him for being so reckless and tells Lucius to deactivate his ability. Lucius tells him to relax and says he's seen enough to draw his conclusions. Nodoka then approaches and asks the hero what he thought of the boy. He reflects that despite the clumsy start, the boy's fighting skill was something else entirely. And if he could maintain that state, he would become a force to be reckoned with. He then remembers Noburu's father saving him and saying he did a good job. Back then, the young Lucius looked at his savior with complete admiration. In his memories, the hero recalls how Subaru saw himself as a challenger. With a smile, he thinks that the son is truly just like his father in spirit. The clan leader stares at him and seems to want to say something but gives up in the end. She stays silent and the hero turns to the protagonist to talk. Lucius praises the fight and asks the boy to explain more about his ability. The protagonist then starts explaining his skill to the American hero. Lucius understands that the skill lets him copy others, but the cost is very high. Nodoka then asks what his plan is and Shizuka scolds him again. The boy on the ground admits he went a bit overboard but gave everything he had, so he doesn't regret it. With a smile, he says that if his goal is the top, then life itself is one big challenge. Seeing this attitude, the three are left speechless, and Shizuka even blushes a little. The American hero gives a small smirk and seems to have understood the boy's determination. With his reflection in her eye, Nodoka says she understands the protagonist's point of view. But Lucius gets serious and says he's going to tell him what he really thinks about the whole situation. He explains that the boy lost his power and can't even take on the most basic missions anymore. Giving a bright smile, the American hero then makes a very unexpected proposal. With a super stylish pose, he offers to help Nobu recover his lost power. The boy is shocked to hear he'll temporarily join the hero's group. Annoyed, the clan leader grabs Lucius's clothes and calls his name angrily. She questions his decision, but the American hero doesn't seem to care. Shizuka says that even though he's unstable, he has the most important thing for a true hunter. The older sister gets curious and asks what that very important thing would be. It's the will to keep moving forward and a heart that doesn't fear challenges. That's why he'll make it. Lucius agrees and feels that now it's his turn to guide the boy to the top of the world. The clan leader looks at the hero with a surprised and touched expression after his words. She's impressed to see him make such a serious and determined face. The blonde starts flirting with her again and already calls Noboru to head to a dungeon immediately. He leaves, dragging the boy along while Nodoka calls him an idiot but ends up asking about the dating. Shizuka watches her partner leave and says it feels a little lonely not being able to go along. Her sister teases her for only worrying about him, and the girl gets completely embarrassed. Then she wishes Noboru good luck as he heads to the dungeon with a determined look. Inside the cave, the hero says the place is perfect for their training. Next, Lucius explains that he'll teach him to fight without relying on his skills. The protagonist gets confused and asks if using skills isn't the basics against monsters. The blonde agrees but says that to master a skill, you need raw physical strength first. Noboru doesn't quite get the explanation and leaves the hero a bit awkward with his reaction. At that moment, a goblin appears in the background, and Lucius sees the perfect opportunity. With his sword glowing, he says it's the perfect time and asks the boy to watch closely. With a single strike, he defeats the monster and shows the swordsmanship of a true hero. The image then focuses on the sharp, concentrated gaze of the American hero in action. After the fight, he asks what the boy thought, and Noboru looks impressed but still confused. Seeing this, the blonde realizes he didn't understand and offers to explain better. He used weak magic and only his physical strength to defeat the monster easily. Lucius says that with strength and technique, you can win even with weak skills or low level. For Noboru, who has many options but little strength, this is the perfect way to fight. The boy realizes he was wrong to think he was useless with low-level abilities. He understands he can get stronger not just by leveling up but through training too. Suddenly a giant monster foot appears, and the hero says it was a careless moment. The hero points to a goblin and says it's the boy's next training partner. Leaping into the attack, the boy charges at the creature with his sword in hand. But he stops halfway and thinks he's forgetting something very important. Even so, he attacks the goblin who looks at him with total confusion. The system then warns that skill acquisition was neutralized by the active effect. With a shocked face, the boy realizes the huge mistake he made by attacking like that. The monster then grabs the blade of his sword, and he panics completely. With incredible strength, the creature throws him far away with a single movement. Lying on the ground, Lucius scolds him for not simply defeating the monster. The boy explains that he doesn't have any skills right now and can't learn new ones. The hero slaps his own forehead and realizes he'll have to babysit the boy after all. He says that as a hero, he won't break his promise and will be very strict with the training. 1 month passes and the boy walks tired down the street after another day of training. Thanks to Lucius, he finally paid off his skill debt and can learn new ones again. He clenches his fist and feels that he's definitely getting stronger every day. With a smile on his face, he feels happy about his progress and the hard training. He then thinks it's already late and it's not the time to get sentimental on the street. At that moment, his phone starts ringing and he finds the unknown number strange. He wonders who it could be since he doesn't recognize the number on the screen. He answers the phone and a voice on the other side asks if they're speaking with Noboru. The voice introduces itself as a member of the Shrine Maidens and asks if he knows where the sisters are. Worried, the boy says no and asks if something bad happened to them. The person explains they left in the morning, haven't returned, and everyone is worried. She apologizes for using his emergency number, but he says he'll help search. The woman thanks the boy for the help and then quickly hangs up. Noboru tries to calm down, but a bad feeling takes over his chest. He then decides maybe he should call Lucius to ask for some help, but before he can make the call, an email notification appears on his phone. With a bit of hope, he wonders if the message is from his partner. Upon reading the email's content, the boy is completely shocked by the news. It was a message from Nimi saying the sisters had illegally entered a dungeon. The boy panics thinking that Shizuka and even Nodoka are in danger. With his fist clenched, he realizes he has no other choice but to go there. But before running off, he decides he needs to make a few calls first. He thinks about calling Lucius and the person who helped him before. Suddenly the protagonist remembers something very important he needs to do. He calls his mom and warns her that he might come home a little later. Even without knowing what to do, he runs desperately through the dark city streets. With all his strength, the boy runs as fast as he can through the night. Arriving at the branch, the manager is informed of his arrival and tells him to come in, saying, "Excuse me." He enters the manager's office to find out what's happening. Desperate, the boy asks Nimi what that email means. The manager asks him to calm down and says haste is the enemy of perfection while offering tea. The boy apologizes for his attitude, and the boss says now they can talk. He then starts explaining everything and asks if the boy knows Dungeon JO45. The man reveals that the news about new monsters was a lie to cover up the disappearances. With wide eyes, the protagonist realizes how serious the situation is. His boss confirms the case is connected and that the sisters entered that dungeon. The manager says he also doesn't understand why they would do something so reckless. With a furious look, the boy hears that Nodoka said she had his permission. Since she's a well-known figure and there have been exceptions before, the guards believed her. With that, the staff assumed it was another special case and let them through. He only found out when they asked for confirmation and admits it was their mistake. The man bows apologizing, but the boy says that makes him feel awkward. Not knowing the reason, the boss then asks the protagonist what he plans to do now. The boy shouts with determination that of course he's going to find them and bring them back. With a smile on his face, the manager says he knew it and gives him permission to infiltrate. He then says he's expecting wonderful results once again. The protagonist then arrives at the dark dungeon and wonders what to do next. With that, he starts shouting and asking if anyone is there to hear him. He keeps calling for Shizuka, but the only answer is the echo of his own voice. With that, the boy decides to go deeper into the cave to try to find them. The protagonist then starts wondering if she'll scold him for being reckless, but he doesn't care about the lecture. He just wants to make sure she's safe. After some time, he crouches down and finds it strange that there are no monsters around. Suddenly, the boy senses a presence and realizes someone is attacking him. A blur passes by him at high speed, and the boy barely dodges the strike. When he looks at his opponent, the protagonist is shocked and can't believe what he sees. The person who attacked him was Nodoka, the older sister of his partner Shizuka. Not understanding anything, he wonders why the clan leader would attack him like that, but she doesn't give him time to think and advances again with a powerful attack. He tries to defend himself and shouts that he's Shizuka's friend, but ends up getting hurt in the arm. With red eyes, she seems to recognize him and whispers his name. However, she doesn't stop attacking, and the boy understands something very strange is happening. At this rate, he knows he won't survive and that defeat is the only possible outcome. With no other option, he consumes 5 of his skills to activate an ability. With a powerful punch, the protagonist uses the shield to protect himself from the attack. The woman is surprised to be hit squarely by the boy's ability. A huge explosion of light occurs, and the force of the impact throws both of them away. Nobiru is violently thrown back, but his attack manages to stop her advance. With his injured hand, the protagonist says he made it, but there was no other way. He approaches Nodoka lying on the ground and asks if she's okay. Relieved, the boy runs toward her to check on the woman's condition, but suddenly she gets up and attacks him again with a powerful strike. Desperate, he realizes she's not well and doesn't know what to do. He knows she's much stronger and that he'll only wear himself out if he keeps fighting. With a dark aura, the woman advances with a relentless and terrifying attack. wounded and with no way out, he wonders what he can do to get out of this situation. Unexpectedly, an ice wall appears and blocks the woman's attack. Lucius arrives and says he showed up at the perfect time to help his new friend. The hero asks what he's doing there, and the boy says it was because of the email. While fighting Nodoka, the blonde asks for an explanation, and the boy says he was attacked. With that, the American hero continues fighting the out-of-control woman. A mysterious voice says that Sight is shameful and it's not her full strength. The entity controlling her asks if the hero has a will or if he's sleeping. The two then clash in an incredible aura battle with tremendous power. The mysterious being says they can only communicate through their eyes. With a clown-like face, the entity asks the hero to tell it something secret. Lucius just stays silent, watching the enemy with attention and seriousness. The entity then understands and says he wouldn't want to be exposed in that state. The American hero understands the situation and, with all his strength, says he'll stop her. He then says the dance is over and creates an explosion to push the woman and Nobiru away. With sword in hand, the blonde prepares and activates one of his support abilities. Next, he overloads his ice magic for a devastating G-level attack. With his eyes shining, he asks her to receive the silver embrace and find peace. Lucius then unleashes a colossal wave of ice to freeze the possessed woman. She's hit directly by the attack and screams as her body gets covered in ice. Little by little, the clan leader is completely frozen by the hero's powerful magic. The woman is now trapped in a huge ice crystal, unable to move. The blonde then jokes that he'll save the awakening kiss for later and says goodbye. With a calm expression, he calls her name while she sleeps inside the ice.